Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of Hoops, Helmets, and Heels. This is Rachel, the Dime Diva. Are you ready to talk some sports? So, today we're going to get into the mess. Last weekend, Colorado Buffalo's quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, ended up making headlines from Thursday to Sunday, and he's still making headlines as we speak. So we're going to get into all the tea that pertains to Shedeur Sanders, his draft process, the draft after party, the aftermath of the draft, and I'll give you guys my opinions along the way of the different events that have transpired with Shedeur on the last week. So the NFL draft took place from April 24th to 26th, 2025. That was this past Thursday through Saturday. And Shedeur Sanders is formerly the starting quarterback of the Colorado Buffaloes. And he's also the son of primetime Deion Sanders, one of the most prolific and well-known football figures of the past 30 to 40 years. He has been in the media consistently since the 80s, and he has been known as a media darling, but also as a lightning rod. And we'll talk more about how that affected Shedeur's draft stock, allegedly, in this episode. So there's something that I want to just say up front about Shedeur that I think people should have in mind and be aware of, providing context in this whole situation. So I watched Shedeur's interview with ABC before the draft took place, and it gave me a lot of context, I feel, to understand his mindset and his way that he approaches football that I think was missing from some of the analysis from the sports media. I think the black media got this right for the most part, but I think the sports media was missing this critical piece. So Shedeur was asked about his brand, Legendary, which is like his own clothing brand, and it's also kind of his tagline for his life, his philosophy, etc. And he shared that to him, his father, Deion Sanders, always did everything to the utmost degree. He was always like this paragon of athleticism, but also sportsmanship. And Shedeur said that for him, legendary meant providing the utmost respect for the Sanders last name and carrying on his family legacy. So it doesn't come from a place of cockiness the way that the media tries to portray it as. It comes from a place of reverence. So let's talk about before the draft so that we can understand the context of what happened here, with Shedeur being drafted in the 5th round instead of being drafted in the 1st round as expected. So I got a lot of this background context from NFL Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Cris Carter used to be on ESPN. I remember watching him on Monday Night Football and on the Sunday analysis shows. I don't know what he's doing now, but he did appear on a podcast recently to share his opinion of what happened in the Shedeur Sanders draft situation. So Cris Carter was for sure speaking from the NFL perspective. A lot of people were calling Cris Carter an Uncle Tom. They were saying that he is white identified and not on the side of the community. I think it's more nuanced than that, and I'll provide you my opinion of Cris Carter's analysis once I break it down for you. So this is what Cris had to say on the podcast when asked what happened with Shedeur, why did he fall to the 5th round? Cris said that, number one, folks felt that Shedeur and Deion were too highly thinking of themselves. Shedeur allegedly felt that he had enough power to dictate where he would and wouldn't play, similar to Eli Manning the year that he got drafted when he decided where he wanted to go. And his dad, Archie Manning, was a facilitator in that process. folks felt that Shedeur and Dion felt that they deserved the same treatment, and they weren't feeling that. Second, as part of this, Shedeur was allegedly trying to narrow the amount of teams that he would go to. Third, Shedeur opted not to work out in the NFL draft combine, which folks felt rang of a bit of being full of himself. Number 4, Chris stated that Shedeur's interview process was not impressive. He came off as being entitled, and he did not do well in his whiteboard interviews or playbook interviews. So in the NFL, for quarterbacks, they'll oftentimes have quarterbacks get the playbooks before the initial meetings with the team so they can study them, be able to memorize the plays, learn the team's offense to the best of their ability. And then they'll also run plays on the whiteboard and ask the quarterback, what are the different audibles you might run? What are situational awareness pieces that you pick up here? And allegedly, according to Chris Carter, Shedeur did not take these seriously and did not perform well. Number 5, Chris stated that it was a problem that Shedeur already had his own line of merchandise, and he had an issue with the legendary label. The fact that he was calling himself legendary and he wasn't even in the NFL yet. Number 6, Chris mentioned Shedeur's conversations with number 1 draft pick Cam Ward. Chris Carter stated that Shedeur asked Cam Ward what his hobbies were outside of football, and he also asked Cam if he would like to film a rap music video. I don't, I'll give you guys my opinion in just a second, but I don't think either of those are bad. Number 7, Chris Carter alleged kind of vaguely that Deion Sanders was out of control in the media. And then number 8, and finally, Chris Carter said that, quote, they taught him a great lesson. He ain't running SHIT, unquote. And when asked by the podcast host, who's they that taught Shedeur a lesson, Chris said, the system. Okay, Chris. So my opinion on Chris Carter's interview and the reasoning behind Shedeur falling in the draft is this. I think that there is some merit to the playbook and whiteboard-based critiques, right? So I think that Shedeur has always been coached by Deion. And so I believe that he knows Deion's system, but he's never had to do a lot of study to learn a new playbook. So as a GM, I would be concerned to say, okay, as a quarterback who's always had your dad as your coach from little league till now, are you going to be able to run someone else's system? Are you going to be able to lock in and study the playbook, learn the plays, and be able to execute at an NFL level with NFL level defenses? I think that's a legitimate concern. I would not be surprised if Shedeur did not excel in those, not because he's not an intelligent young man, but because I can tell that he likes to have fun and that he may be relatively image conscious in comparison to football conscience. So I think that while this draft process has been one where he's taken it seriously, I also think that he had a lot of distractions during the draft process. And so he very well may not have locked in and studied those playbooks the way that he should for those whiteboard interviews. However, that does not justify him dropping from the projected first round to the 5th round. I think most of that was about what Chris Carter said in the interview, which is, quote unquote, they taught him a great lesson. He ain't running ish. That's what they really wanted to show him. They wanted to humble him. And I don't think that's a legitimate reason to pick someone later in the draft. I think that you should pick who you think is going to help you win. And that's that. Trying to teach people lessons gives very much plantation mentality, gives very much slave owners trying to teach the slaves, don't get out of line. That's what it gives to me, and it's disturbing. I also really take issue with the concerns over him trying to discuss with Cam Ward their personal hobbies and interests. I think it's so weird that NFL players are seen as suspect if they have interests outside of football. Like, football should be their whole life. That's really sick, and I think it's setting them up for depression and issues later in life. Not to mention combining that with CTE. But I think the reason that football players oftentimes struggle so much in their personal lives and then after they retire is because folks don't want them to think about or be about anything except football. Not be a well rounded person, not be a person who has hobbies and interests. And I think that that's really, really, it's sad. I think, of course, he should be able to talk to Cam Ward. He's trying to make a friend. So, what are your hobbies? What kind of things do you like to do? What are you interested in? If the only thing you're interested in is football, that's not a flex. And I think that being Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur was able to see, like, you could be a well-rounded person. You could be a person with varied interests and still be very successful in your sport of choice. In terms of the fact that Shedeur and Deion had a big presence in the draft, yes, I think that makes sense. But I do think that racial aspects were at play here, in my opinion, because why was Eli Manning allowed to be part of the process with his dad, Archie Manning, another former NFL player, and to be able to have Archie be so involved? I think it's because the NFL players saw them as part of the boys' club and they see Shador and Dion as being outside the circle of trust, per se, which led them to be ostracized in this situation. So now that we've done a little bit of speculation as to why things went down the way they did, let's talk about actually how they went down. So on the first day of the draft, which was Thursday, both Shiloh Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, the two sons of Deion Sanders playing on the Colorado team, started Twitch live streams. So the goal was for them to live stream their draft process, for folks to be able to be part of it and to watch and to check in. Also, very good branding and marketing so that those guys can set up a good audience of Twitch subscribers so that potentially they can play Madden or other sports related or even Call of Duty, whatever type of games they want to play on Twitch and earn money that way. So it's another stream of income, which is a great idea. So a couple of things occurred during the live streams of Shedeur and Shiloh that were notable. The first, which was an ultimate bummer, which was that Shedeur received a call from Jax Ulbrich, who is the son of Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. Jax was pretending on the phone to be an NFL team representative, and you can tell that Shedeur, when he answered that phone call, assumed that this was an NFL team calling. Shedeur later mentioned about this call that no one else had his phone number, and that's why he assumed it was somebody calling for the draft. He had this number specifically set up for only draft phone calls. And Coach Ulbrich admitted later in a statement released by the Atlanta Falcons that his son had gleaned Shedeur's information from Ulbrich's private iPad. Now, Ulbrich claims that Jax just stumbled across the information on his iPad, which just so happened to be unlocked. I don't believe that personally. Again, that's my opinion. I don't have any proof of that, but I believe that either Coach Ulbrich provided Jax with that in order to help him go viral on TikTok, or that Jax broke into his dad's iPad, which could be criminally chargeable if that iPad is Atlanta Falcons property. So I think that's why they stated things that way. But again, just my opinion. I don't have any proof on that. In terms of Shedeur's reaction to this, it was really heartbreaking, and he did a good job in how he handled it. So when Shedeur first received the call, he said, "I'm good. I've been waiting on you." So I think he was answering somebody being like, "Hey, Shedeur, how are you?" And he looked excited, like he was, "Ooh, finally happening. I'm ready to get drafted." Then his face fell and his smile quickly faded. You could hear that the voice on the phone was saying, "You'll have to wait a little longer," which is just like, that's so mean. He was confused. He knew something had to be up because they don't call you to say you're not getting drafted. It's just like with the job interview, like they don't call you to be like you didn't get the job. You just either get a call that says you got the job or you don't get a call. Nobody calls to say you're not getting drafted. So he was clearly confused, and then he realized, oh, this must be something that is a prank or some type of sick joke. And later, when Shedeur was interviewed about this after he got drafted, he shared that he doesn't hold any hard feelings towards Jax. Jax did apologize, and he said that Jax's actions were childish, but everybody has childish moments sometimes, and that he doesn't entertain negativity. So I'm proud of Shedeur for how he handled that situation very maturely. Another note is that this prank call caused Shedeur to actually shut down his live stream. So that was, I feel sad that somebody had the audacity to be that mean. He did continue to show up on Shiloh's live stream, though. So we still got to see Shedeur's draft process. It just so happened to be from Shiloh's live stream. Now, another notable event that happened during the draft process is that President Trump chimed in. So let me read you President Trump's full quote. It's a lot. Quote, "What is wrong with NFL owners? Are they stupid? Deion Sanders was a great college football player and was even greater in the NFL. He is also a very good coach, streetwise and smart. Therefore, Shedeur, his quarterback son, has phenomenal genes and is all set for greatness. He should be picked immediately by a team that wants to win. Good luck, Shedeur, and say hello to your wonderful father." You guys, there's so many things wrong with this statement that President Trump made. Let me just break down for you a couple of things that I noticed that are really like out of pocket. First of all, calling Deion Sanders a good coach, streetwise and smart. What does streetwise mean? Why are we using the term street as it pertains to a black man in any context, especially as a white man? I feel awkward about it. I feel weird about it, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. Trump also said, Shedeur, his quarterback son, has phenomenal genes. Okay. So that sounds like selective breeding type language, like trying to get genetics that are the most powerful genetics, trying to get strong people to breed with strong people. It kind of smells of eugenics, where you categorize people and determine who's the worthy people, who are the top tier people. It's just giving very people as commodities and people as chattel, which is uncomfortable for me. And then he should be picked immediately. The picked is in quotations. Back to the whole idea for me that the draft process just feels like an auction. It feels like a slave auction. I don't like it. I feel like there should be free agency from day one, and that people should just have to sign free agents from college, because the whole being picked and what number were you picked and how much were you picked for, it's giving slave auction, and I don't like it. Well, on a more lighter note, during Shiloh's, or I'm sorry, Shedeur's live stream, fans, eagle-eyed fans noticed that Shedeur was sitting next to Jamaican singer, songwriter and Instagram baddie, Shinsia. So let me show you guys because this is fun information. It's always good to see the visuals of these ladies and these gentlemen as well. So here's Shinsia, and then here's Shedeur. So Shinsia was sitting next to him at the draft stream, and people were like, wait a second. I thought that Shinsia was dating hip hop super producer London on the Track, who is also Summer Walker's baby daddy. And the Breakfast Club dug into this. Lauren LaRosa from the Breakfast Club, so thank you, Lauren. And she found out all the tea for us. So allegedly, or according to the Breakfast Club, Shinsia was hired to model and make an appearance at Shedeur's draft live stream and his draft party. So a lot of these Instagram models and artists, entertainers will be paid fees to appear at different events and parties and stuff. And so that's really normal. That's something that happens all the time. And we'll talk about Shedeur's post-draft party in just a minute, but Shinsia did end up attending that as well. And what Shinsia was really hired for was if Shedeur had been drafted in the first round, she was going to give him his hat and then give it to him to put it on. So she was just there as almost like a Vanna White type person, like, here's the hat, and then he can put it on and have a photo opportunity. So like I said, it's very clear that Shedeur is very into image. He's very into like making the blogs. He wants to be noticed. He wants to be seen. And we girls oftentimes call that the helmet syndrome for football players, because since there's so many different players on a football team, like at least 50 plus players, and then there's even more in college, I believe, and then they all wear helmets. A lot of times football players, when they're out and about, will try to like stunt and make sure that you know who they are, and make sure to have like bottles come to their table with like their name and like the team and all that stuff, because a lot of times you don't get to see how they look under the helmet. So unlike an NBA player who may walk into a function like try not to be noticed, or they may not be looking as much for recognition, the football players are oftentimes looking for that recognition. So in terms of Shedeur getting drafted, he was selected in the 5th round, number 144, by the Cleveland Browns. And Shiloh, his brother, also got drafted. He was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Or I'm sorry, he didn't get drafted. He was undrafted, but he still was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay. So this is where it gets the most fun for me, because you guys know I love the personal lives of the athletes and the celebrity tea. So Shiloh had this star-studded party in Dallas after his draft night. And these were the folks that were on the guest list that I was able to find. So first, Young Miami. So there's a little bit of drama behind this. So here is Young Miami and Shedeur at his party. And this had a little bit of drama because people started tweeting at Young Miami and saying like, oh, why are you with Shiloh? He's 23, you're in your late 20s, and like, that's not a good look, whatever. And Young Miami came back and was like, first of all, I'm not with Shedeur. Like, we're not together. Like, everything doesn't have to, every time you see a man and a woman together, it doesn't mean that they have to be engaging in relations. That's just reality. Just because a man and a woman are attractive doesn't mean that they have to be engaging in relations. And then secondly, she was like, I would never go from a big dog to a puppy. And I think she didn't mean that as like that Shedeur is a puppy, but that she's been with billionaires before. Like, she, not to say that it was good that she was with Diddy, but like she's been with men who are billionaires. She's been with establishment in like their 40s. You know, she's dealt with men who have their own and that are also like extremely, you know, dangerous men, like very uh alpha males. And again, not saying that Shedeur isn't any of those, but he's 23 years old. So Young Miami was just like, I wouldn't even be seen with him anyways. Like, he's a rookie. Rookies to me are for IG baddies and models who are trying to like hit a lick. Like, you look for guys in their first couple years in the league to be like, they're green and I could get a baby out of him type situation. Or like, I'm not that elite level of baddie, and so I'm not sure that I could get a, you know, LeBron, and he's, of course he's married, but like, I'm not sure I could get a Kobe, and again, rest in peace, you know, he was married as well. But people who feel like they can get these higher tier people like Stephon Diggs, but Young Miami was seen with Stephon. He's like a multi-$100 million type player. She doesn't need to be messing with Shedeur Sanders. Some IG model who has 100,000 followers or 500,000 followers and is trying to like get her name in the game, that's who Shedeur is going to end up with. Mark my words. We're going to be like, oh, Miss Pretty Girl 101 and Shedeur are expecting a baby. Like, that's what you will expect in the next couple years. So who else was there? Okay, Kodak Black was there, and he actually looked good. He looked like he was, you know, cleaned up a little bit from his alleged perk usage. Shinsia was there, as we said it before. Low Shimmy was there. He's a 26-year-old rapper, and I just mentioned that so that you guys can seem like you're up to date on new stuff, because I don't know who that is. And so if you guys talk about it with friends or whatever, you can be like, yeah, Low Shimmy was there. LOESHIMMY. And then CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott from the Dallas Cowboys were there. Notably, at the party, Shedeur was wearing his $100,000 iced out chain, which is his legendary clothing brand logo. It looked swaggy. It looked good, and it just goes to show like Shedeur wants to be like a rapper type vibe, you know, like the chains, the rap videos, like his having Young Miami, Shinsia, like he really wants to be like in the rap lifestyle. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know how James Harden and Lil Baby have like that best friendship and they like gift each other like watches and change and stuff. I would not be surprised if we ended up finding out that like Shedeur develops that kind of relationship with Kodak Black or one of the other YN rappers that's out. I wouldn't be surprised if they have that kind of James Harden, Lil Baby vibe where, you know, Shedeur's on stage jamming out as the rapper performs and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so according to Sports Illustrated, Shedeur received a gift of $1 million at this party. Now, this is, I don't really know if I believe this or not, because Dion Jr., who's Shedeur's brother, confirmed the gift, but they didn't say from whom. What was the source? So part of me feels like they just got $1 million in cash and brought it to the party. You know, like they just went to the bank, got $1 million in cash and brought it to the party. I don't know if it was gifted to him. He might have already had the mill and just brought it out in the Louis Vuitton trunks to be like baller. All right, well, ending this off on a high note, despite all the drama surrounding Shedeur's draft and all the stuff that people tried to do to tear him down, he still rises regardless, because as of May 1st, Fanatics has confirmed that Shedeur Sanders' jersey was the #1 selling rookie jersey for the entire NFL. Get him, Shedeur. Well, I'm wishing Shedeur the absolute best. I hope and pray that he has an amazing NFL career and proves everybody wrong. And I'm excited at minimum to follow him in the NFL this year and see all the shenanigans that ensue, social media wise, celebrity wise, and the like. Thanks for joining me for another week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.